have a new space at their disposal, and so thanks to Micah and Shane and everybody who's a part of the upper room for letting me come back, and Luke for opening, and you guys for hanging out and being here, and just thank you so much. I had this idea a few years ago that it would be fun to write a fiction album, so I wrote one. And it was called Correspondence of Fiction, and so that's what I did. And a while ago, 2 Christmases ago, me and a friend of mine, 2 Christmases ago, me and a friend of mine named Chris Rochelle, we did a tour in December, a Christmas tour called the Everything is Bigger in Texas Except for These Small Christmas Party Shows house tour. And it was great. We did 2 full weeks of tour in just Texas. We're not going to do it again, but it was really cool. And so then this last December, the following, I guess it would have been the following year, we did another run and didn't call it that. We went to more places than just Texas, but started serving coffee at some of the shows. And I loved that. Like it was so fun, and it made me kind of want to do something similar. Hopefully, just in the hopes of creating some sort of intimacy. And I don't even know if like any sort of disconnect between a person on this side of the microphone and a person on this side of the microphone like even exists between artists who are just small artists and doing indie stuff like me. But if there is, then to just try to obliterate that and all just be human beings hanging out in a room. And so that's like some of the coffee thing. And the guys from Left Roasters, they're from Portland, Oregon, they sent me out with some of their stuff. So that's what I've been serving, and they've sponsored the last couple of tours that I've done on this Don't Sink Tour correspondence thing. So they're great. If you did sign up for, there's like a sign-in notebook for anybody who came to the shows. Just we'll send you some more stuff about them and just whatever random crap that I feel like sending you. So just how much fun would that be, right? Another email in your inbox. It's just what everyone wants all the time. But yeah, so you can feel free to do that there. I've been out on the road for about a month now doing this, and I know that last year at Upper Room, I told the correspondence story as well. I guess I don't know what to call that other than the beta version of doing this tour on the East Coast. We've done West, Midwest, and now East Coast, and this is kind of still a part of that run, but I've loved getting to tell it every single time. And so I hope that it will not be old to anybody who has seen it before. A couple of people were asking me like kind of where some of those ideas for the story came from, and since I'm standing here, I'm just going to tell you really quick. So there was a tour that I did in 2013 with my wife Brandy, who's out with me now, and then another friend, and I got pulled over in Houston, and that was a bummer. And then the next moment, I thought I should write a story about a boy and a girl in a treehouse. And I don't know like really where all that came from, other than that I distinctly remember like siren ticket, pissed off, boy girl treehouse. Like that was the order of the thing. And then I don't know what happened with it. So I wrote a couple of chapters for the story. Didn't really know what was going to happen with it or if it was going to go anywhere. It was a lot different than anything that I had written up until that point in time. But it was also something that was really fun for me, and a new kind of art that I wanted to try to explore. I had been listening to a lot of lectures from a guy named Timothy Keller at that time, who looks like a turtle, and every time I think of him and see him, I just think that more and more, and I hope that one day I can just meet him and tell him that in person, so it doesn't feel quite as much like slander as it does when I say it at these shows. But my friend, like me and Brandy do a summer camp every year, and we just left there to come and do a couple of these shows, and there was a kid standing outside with a Squirtle Pokemon card, and I just thought, hey man, that's Timothy Keller right there. But I had been listening to these lectures by Squirtle, and he was talking about 2 of his favorite authors, J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and how Tolkien had what he called just a great theology of creativity, and just believed that a thing could be a created and good thing in and of itself, and kind of went into writing the Lord of the Rings or the Silmarillion or whatever else he went on to write with that mindset of thinking, okay, like I believe in this thing and this person, I believe who the God of the Bible is, but I don't need to crowbar his name into this story 1,000 times in order to prove to everybody else that that's a true thing. I can just write a thing and it can just come through naturally if that's truly who I am. And I really liked that idea because I don't know, really, I don't know what your experience was growing up. I feel like a lot of us in this room are in kind of the same age group. I just don't know your background, so depending, you'll get this. But if I wanted to listen to the new Creed album, you know, like I remember when Human Clay came out, man. That was awesome. Yeah. Thank you. See, I know it's still cool. I don't know what he's doing with his hair, if he has any hair left anymore. But so anyway, if I wanted to listen to a new record, then my thing was my parents are super strict, and I wasn't allowed to jam anything unless I double checked it with like Dr. James Dobson's Focus on the Family of Love. And as soon as your parents said, go check it on that website, you just knew, like, I'm not even going to try it. I wouldn't let you listen to anything, you know what I mean? It just wouldn't happen. And so it was like, I mean, and that was good for some reasons or whatever. I guess I pay more attention to lyrics and stuff now. But I also think that we have the opportunity to be a whole lot more creative and incarnational with our art than I feel like a lot of the Christianity that I grew up in has the kind of framework for. And so I really loved some of those ideas that Keller was articulating. And then at the same time, he'd been talking about Lewis a lot. And Lewis, before he became the demigod of our faith or whatever he became, he just didn't agree with any of it, believe in any of it, and just thought, man, but one of the things that he could never reconcile with his unbelief was the fact that beautiful things in and of themselves did not completely satisfy him. And he always wondered what made those things beautiful, and it frustrated him that he always wondered what was behind it that he could not see that made those things beautiful. And eventually came up, it's like a coffee mug thing now, but ended up just talking about how if he wasn't completely satisfied with the things of this place in and of themselves, then perhaps he was made for a different place ultimately. And I really loved just kind of some of the places that conversation led to in regard to who I am as a person. I don't assume that just because you're in this room you think the same things that I think or believe the same things that I believe, but as a person who longs to look to Jesus as the Christ and as a Savior, I also know that I'm probably one of the most cynical and skeptical and argumentative people that I know in relation to a lot of those things that I proclaim to believe. And one of the things that has been a constant in the midst of all of that over the years has been good art, regardless of who that comes from. Just feeling like there is something that Keller kind of described it in such a way that it flies beneath the argumentativeness and the reasoning into a place that you can't rationalize away and gets to this sort of a Romans 1, like inherent Pauline kind of a knowledge of this mystery that we're created with and long for. And that's a thing that I have been excited and thankful to experience through different mediums of art over the years. Anyway, that's a long-ass way of saying I just wanted to write a cool story. And so that's like the why. For those of you that asked about the why, there you go. But I also think that art can just be a thing that exists in and of itself. And so I wanted to write a story about a boy and a girl, and them being in love with one another, and the girl being taken away to the sea by her dad to go chase a great white whale, and the boy at home on land building a treehouse for them to live in whenever they get home. It's really nice. And the girl, just to clarify, the girl's going to live in the treehouse with the boy, not the dad. Clear things up a little. And they write letters back and forth to one another via the ship captain's liquor bottles on the waves of the sea. And that's the premise, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to try to get through this whole thing, and I appreciate you being here very much. I'm also going to press the space bar now on my computer, because that's how it all starts. So. Here we go. Good job. Oh, you heard it. Thank you. I don't know if there's a whole lot of vocal in there, but if there could be a little bit, I would love a little bit. Thank you so much. My love, when we first set sail and pushed off to sea, I stood at the bow looking backward, dry-eyed and imagining that the world in all of its color and grandeur and majesty had been devastated by that same blood I'd seen when I told you that my father was making me leave. It was a midsummer night's eve, and in my heart it was a romance. That same Shakespearean tragedy, that quintessential teenage flickering that let love burn brighter in the reminiscent memories as we slowly fell asleep, cuddling beneath the stars that I wished upon through the cutout at the top of the teepee. And double by day as an Indian fort, with girls' half cooties stitched across the seams, and at night our secret love affair that the cowboys would have deemed a crime punishable by catgun. Sour faces and wild, wild west make-believe, old enough to comprehend but young enough to dream. I can still hear the rhythm of your breathing beneath that canopy, while the wind played brush on the snare and God threw his bolts of lightning like the thunder clapped cloven to complement the whistling moving through the trees. And remembered you promising that when we grew up, you built a home for me, and now to start growing. And you curl up your fake mustache like your favorite character in your favorite movie and whisper, I'll be your huckleberry. And in the morning, when I snuck back to my room, I thought tragedy indeed, that innocence, if ever it was, to be stripped away without a warning. My kid, by grace or by fate or by luck or by mercy, I trust the moon will carry your letters safely to me. This flood rescinding will give way to land depending, and like the hand of God gave olive leaves to encourage that ancient family. My dove, with love and sincerity and all that I can offer you, your queen. In my everything, I found your letter inside of a bottle and didn't know what to say. It was broken further down the cove, ink spilled hallowed but such a shallow grave. Read your poem like it was life in itself, starved for hope like the waters were too hard to navigate. But it figures if I was going to build us a home, then your heart would find its way. It smelled of sea salt and your father's favorite poison, and I will never, ever forget that day. College rule lines clouded by the liquor, like a watercolor painting that had absorbed the spectrum with blue and hues thereof, or like a piece of bread to absorb the damage that bottomless secret shattered against a seashell and rewrote the story that it would tell to any little girl who might pick up that whitewashed tune, expecting to hear the ocean, listening for the crescendo and the crash when at last she hear the echoes of your whispers. These bottles will carry my heart home, and the currents will be kind, and my lover's letters will return to me, and our children will grow to find that all is not for naught, and though all is not yet healed, their parents, they worked hard for it, and the storms honored their appeals to see that though my father is drowning, his bottles float above the waves, and though I used to dread the water, its waves would be faithful to crash every day until at last I see your face. Things aren't the same. I've been picking up splinters of lumber for the floorboards and wondering about all of our splintered promises. And even though we didn't have control over their breaking, oaths like those don't account for much. I loved the beach for the way the breath of God rose out of the deep. And I hated the sand, but I would tolerate it to hold your hand and watch the sun sink into the sea, be buried beneath the surface. Molten love buried just beneath the surface, erupting, volcanic, unable to keep beneath the surface that broke like our parents' dormant, surface level, crater of a marriage that looked more like a coffin every time I read the note that I stole out of my father's casket before it closed. He wrote it to my mother, a woman I never met, but it made me feel just like I knew her. And this is what it said.
People will come.
Dear diary, grandfather's as creaky as his front porch, loads his shotgun beneath the awning, spittoon restless for rain, carpenter's chair against the whistling air, rocking back and forth, rocking, snapshot picture worth it, just like the movies. She said that he loved baseball, and James Earl Jones. She said that he's got God talking inside of his thoughts as he's rounding those bases on his way back home. If you build it, they will come. So baby, listen to what the Lord said. I've been getting pretty warm building for nearly a decade. In a perfect world, we shouldn't have been allowed to lose sight of what it means to love wholly. I got a Polaroid hanging on my wall that a friend took of me and my angel. I remember the day like it's something I can touch, but it's stuck in the square between the borders of the film, and I can run my fingers over our faces, but I can't get back to the places we were. You gotta paint deep in your bones stark. It compels you forward like you're tied to a slave master's cruel hand, and it's the same pain that drives that aggressive heart of stone. So you've grown to love the man. You keep pouring yourself out again and again into legible lines through a crooked pen. And it's painful, but it's familiar. And habit breeds comfort. I don't know what I'd do without him. In the early morning, when you've fallen asleep in your home, I drift back into the memories that I've claimed as my own. And wonder if tonight will be a night that I hang on my wall, like I did before we stopped taking photos, out of the habit of being comfortable in a perfect world. We'll have the albums labeled seasons with chapter headings, and we'll staple them to the corkboard that hangs at the foot of the bed. There's longevity in a memory that's spilled out in pen, and if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I've written down every one of them. I work hard, scarred toil through the soil for the youth that I see in my friends, but these journals are moments in time, snapshots in our lives, and in retrospect, age is an overexposed photo that the memories can't mend. I know my sweet seductress, and her name is depression. I know the best beneath that demon's destructive oppression. And those Polaroids, she drove the ink into the canvas like a slave beneath his master's cruel hand. And I hated that whip, but I always wondered what I'd do without it. And I grew to love the man. Change. I begged for movement, and the good Lord, He answered my prayers. But you don't know how to breathe easy when you let go of your habits. Even if your comforts left you gasping for air. Dear time, grandfather's as creaky as his front porch, set like oil in the gun barrel, dip can kicked over the railing, sandpaper hands stuck behind thumbtacks on my wall. I've got an ache in my chest for every season I miss, and it gets worse when the snow starts to fall. There are butterflies alive in that couple's eyes a few years since, forgotten by all. And sometimes, if the phone starts to ring, I can still hear their wings when you call. I begged for movement and got what I asked for. I can picture the answer like it came yesterday, and in the land of the gods, I think that things are timeless, but all of us are still prone to decay. You know, I still lived up hope for certain smiles in those photos for us when I pray. Time is a cruel lover. She breaks her house apart and into bones. You know, comfort is no good reason to stand still, and idle hands build nothing that you can call your own.
I ain't giving you 1 minute, Dad, or see you hanged in Portsmouth and set fire to convenience. Which would be,
That's the dude.
Bill your hand, you silent.
sunsets or escapes. Well, there's a painter who paints, and when he paints, we just take in the ripples the paints make when they swell against the textures on the page. And then when waves, back home, my other spent his nights all alone and thinks it's all about perspective and taking my thoughts captive. He'd be captivated by it. It's all counterfeit. It's all functional saviors that don't function or save you. It's all identity tricked. It's all grandiose promises exposed as illegitimate. It's the way my father seeks and swears by like it'll bring unity to our family. It's the way my mother drove away the same day that she drove the man to drink and called it killing two birds with one stone, or three. If you count me, I was a seed. She used to say I was the only beautiful thing that ever blossomed from her branches, and I guess I wasn't beautiful enough to keep. The gun was cocked and loaded years before I ever watched her weep. And we always saw her finger on the trigger, trembling. I have heard tales of lovers broken by the bullets that all of us call our parents. For example, in 50 BC, Parthenius and Mysia penned the Arabian lover the Narcissus story, who gutted himself with a sword on the man's doorstep. So, in 880, Ovid found Echo in a mountain crevice, rejected and lonely, until only faint shivers of the whispers remained. And to me, this far removed they are, as clear as the day. With that man's voice in my head, here in Poseidon's domain, throbbed with the fury with which Arminius and that pagan deity prayed, throbbed with the fiction children believe, and by which we are betrayed. And despite the winds constantly driving and tossing the waves, and all my double-mindedness, I still hear the refrain, this is not your story. When I watch my dad walk starboard, I picture a pirate walking the plank, looking down into the water, terrified, only to see his reflection and fall so madly in love that he dives headfirst into himself and becomes all that I argue with those echoes about what he deserved to be. I picture Nemesis like a John Wayne movie. I know you always love True Grit, but at the end of the script, Maddie still doesn't have her dad back. And I hope that one day we'll be able to forgive. But until then, maybe presence is greater than answers. Or revenge. If Zeus cast my mother out to Hades, she'd still be just as gone as she is now. If you sent ghosts to tell me all of the reasons why I still cannot sleep at night, I would be wide awake, listening. If you could hear me, I would rather have you than all of my answers, if you could hear me. If you are listening, if you can speak to me, if you would talk back, if you could hear me, I would still rather have you than every single one of my answers. My love, while you were weighing anchor, I was weighing my options, thinking why, like knowing would satisfy. But if love is true, then the tide will carry mine to you. I drown in the undercurrent before I let myself lose our happy ending. It's the future I miss the most. 17 years from now, I want to be younger and as carefree as I can be. I want you next to me, and I want you to reflect all of the best of me. I want the fairy tale, parent that is on porch swing, metaphorically morphing our distorted upbringing into enough of a string to hang by to believe. I was a man before I got the chance to be a boy. Mother said she wanted neither. Father said I was his joy. He kept on saying things like, enjoy your youth while you can. But when the cancer started taking its toll, the roles reversed. And I cannot fathom what it is like to be eaten alive. He said he had ants beneath his skin, but even then, he'd tell it in a bedtime story, son. There are colonies of Englishmen with marching orders to see to it that the Indians become just like them, dressed up in distinguished garb to cover up their colors and civilize them. Well, he said, in a similar sense, I've got tuxedo black blood cells clothing those that bleed red. If you can laugh along with me, the irony is that I will be better dressed than I've ever been. when I lie to rest here in bed. And you wonder why that Indian fort was always the one left standing. I made sure the natives won every time we played that game. And I had mud clods filled with rocks that I launched at the backs of those backstabbers. But admittedly, as you can all imagine, it was a short-lived fame. All my neighborhood friends bleeding from their heads and everything. Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who tells you different is selling something because it's not true. The Dread Pirate Roberts may have been awesome, but that kind of theology is a hell of a downer to subscribe to. I know that there is beauty out there. I'm sure you can see it on the ocean, even if the crew has started to look as white as that whale they're chasing. I've been reading through Moby Dick. That book is so long. And I don't really understand any of it, but Captain Ahab is looking pretty pale. Be careful. I've been building our treehouse. I hid it far enough away so that when we run, then we can stay. And I wrote out a location like a secret on a treasure map. However long your voyage, you'll have a place to call home when you come back. The ladder is nailed to the trunk. I started hammering the foundation to be sure that we have something to build our future on. I long for the day that I get to see your face, my strength, my hope, my song. And you are my song. But 12 months ago today, we stood in silence, fading further and further away, and refused to say goodbye for fear that the farewell might solidify our fate. I knocked on every inch of this wooden vessel to keep that fear from coming true. Goodbye is such a definite word, an infinite word, an intimate word, and in case you hadn't heard, there are no waterfalls at the edge of the world that fall off into eternity. Sorry. I'm bringing on the scrimshaw to hang from the walls or the branches of the balcony. Father gave me 2 teeth from the beast they harpooned last week, and they've been blending the creatures at dock. Well, I've been busy getting my feet steady underneath these sea legs. I had a week more to explore those foreign shores, while the crew and the captain knocked at every brothel door. And I imagine I've got scores of siblings on this island, considering the captain is an island unto himself. Give it time. There are 1,000 orphans forgiving their fathers 70 times, 7 times. And I met one of them that week who became a friend of mine. And he reminded me of you. Don't be jealous, it wasn't quite as cute. You know. He had the Indian feathers of the tomahawk that you've been using to build my shelter. And God knows I'm going to need it. Shelter. But we followed a road out to the country that he said he'd known about for years and claimed it was haunted. Boys always tell those tales when they want to put their arms around you. Monster films were made for men on first dates. I went along, the landscape stood frigid, frost painted, and I contemplated the warm blanket that you would have been in all that cold. I saw ghosts every time I opened my mouth to breathe in and out and pretended that it was smoke. Like the bubblegum cigarettes that we used to get from the corner store before it died with your dad. Acted like they were opiates before the buffalo dance. The fog was like poetry. Difficult to define, but I am completely indifferent to what it means, so long as all of us are able to get lost in it. The boy and I met a mystic at the top of the mountain. The mist got her straight into layers over her legs to keep the cold from coming through, but belly up, half a sundress. And she looked at us and said, "Get your head out of the clouds." So with the sun shining down, I've been thinking about what she meant. She gave a speech about separating herself and related it to the whales. Said when the seamen dig their talons in to empty them and burn their substance for oil, remember they had to separate to find their true worth. And with the light dividing her skeleton frame like a personified worldview, it was the cloudiest case for dualism that I have ever heard of. She told us her feet were evil because they touched the ground, ears guilty by association because they heard the sound, with a mind wicked that wandered and wondered about music and sex and love and the men in the town below. And I don't know, she sounds like my grandparents trying to distinguish between antique Negro spirituals done damn to hell for a pagan drumbeat and unholy. I just hope that if we're a true reflection of some magnanimous other, I won't have to assume that every inherent longing will find me buried alive. You'd think that if God created everything good, she wouldn't stand up on a mountain proclaiming inanimate objects bad and demonizing the rest of creation. I guess the tempo's fault she's stuck alone on a pedestal, cutting herself in half. I want to dance to the music, drink wine to the melody, make love in our treehouse, and rejoice over a son with laughter that's going to come from somewhere. It makes me feel alive. She was kind, but I declined to follow her footsteps. Kiss the boy on the cheek, to stick it to the man, so to speak. We left for the great unknown first thing this morning. If I die at sea, I will be as holistically human as I possibly can be, and believe that I am made that way for a reason. When I sit on the pier and wait for that black abyss to swell and spit out your letters, my heart rises and falls with the water, and sometimes I just wish it would swallow me. Heaven, the expanse above the tide rising and beneath the rain falling. I swear, sometimes breathing feels just like drowning, stuck here in between. But when your bottles float in, there is nothing as beautiful as their dim glow, and my heart longs after them. Their colors catch my eye, dank bourbon or molded green, protecting white sheets painted with calligraphic handwriting, tainted with damp expressions of the bottle's history, but purely you. I've been thinking about what beauty is, and no thinking has added beauty to it. All I know is that it points beyond itself, like I long beyond your love notes, like I long for you. I've seen the entire spectrum refracting off the ripples beneath my bare feet from the edge of this weathered dock, and thought, God, there has got to be more than this. I have no idea what to believe, but beauty pulls me beyond myself like I don't have a choice, and I do not believe in nothing. Where, my love, does the beauty inside of a tree reside? Made up of atoms, identical and colorless, where the light of the sun merely vibrates and waves toward our eyes, striking tissues and moving along nerves like a telephone wire, to their endings like telephones. I do not know. There is no actual color in the atoms of which the tree is composed, or in those vibrations, shape, size, color, touch, and the like are simply the names we call our sensations, and no study can ever bring the notion of beauty to the tree. When I don't know how, help me to embrace the mystery. Will you come home? This treehouse will not be that without you. How you doing? Chapter 8 is from the Father. Today, the first mate told me that my men intend to mutiny me, and I have condemned an entire crew in search of a fabled Leviathan that we would not know what to do with, and he existed in the first place. But we're sinking, he said. And your daughter was in love with a boy back home, dreaming that she is living his life. She's asleep in the cabin, and if you have even a hint of sobriety in between gulps from that last booty she'll use to say goodbye, you'll turn the ship around. It's too late. We're drowning. Daughters of fathers just like mine, except theirs will live out their lives on land long after their daddies have died at sea. Some will remember them as noble men. The rest is having abandoned their roles for a plague dream. All is good or god awful, as their imaginations allow themselves to believe. I do not know whether I care or if I could not possibly care less. When we first set sail and pushed off to sea, I stood at the bow looking everywhere but at my legacy, with that blue ribbon holding up her hair, eyes locked on the boy that I made her leave, waving. I had been chasing this great white dream for as long as catching and stood to promise that I could substantiate every reason that I failed my family. I wanted to be a brave man. I wanted to prove to my wife that I wasn't a failure. I wanted to tell my daughter that Daddy always tried and tried his hardest. I tried my best to make it work. I tried my best to make it work. And all of the things that I idolized became my captors. Now that it's too late, I know that drifting is a deeper threat than betrayal. No one has to convince you to abandon anything. You just inevitably end up downstream, maintain your pride and wonder why the world keeps on shifting. Convinced that you're still standing in the same place. You never mean to drift away. Maybe if you survive and find this, I was right about one thing. Your mother used to say that I was afraid, but apathy is not the same as a stick. And I was never running, and I was never fighting. Indifference sneaks in subtly, and subtleties can kill a man. It'll be of no difference to you, but if there is a God, know that I will stand before him with no excuse, and I can only assume that he will weep. Tragedy indeed. That innocence, though it never was, could have been. My lady, I have combed every inch of this island looking for the final pieces of wood needed to complete our wooden treehouse. I marked the path with cryptic carvings of arrows for right turns and bayonets for lefts, and eventually it drops off into a waterfall. And you can rest assured that if anyone sniffs out our steps, every owl will sneer and bet that no one would be dull enough to jump off and into it. Like we are growing, but childlikeness is the only way to live. So hand in hand, I will stand for nothing less than dives and backflips, and also gainers, even new gainer. But we're going to give this whole life everything that we've got. And if that means jumping off of really high rocks and in the water, then so be it. And telling ghost stories with our face-painted friends around campfires. But for the love of God, no acoustic guitars. I hate campfire acoustic guitar guys. And we'll have sleepovers and sleep over one another. And you'll get a chance to see your wishes come true beneath the same stars that I heard you whisper to. When I pretended to be asleep all those months ago. We've been playing our games, but they're just not the same without my Pocahontas here to rescue me. Somebody always plays your Algonquin dad sheet, and I'm constantly, John Smith, getting my head bashed into the war club. You'll probably laugh when you read this. You don't hear those sounds coming up from Jamestown. Virginia is screaming. I think it's my time to come to your rescue. If all of our bottles find their way to one another, then surely our hands can too. I've been sawing off branches to make room for our brooms and pitching them together to keep the moisture from coming through. I lifted a sail from in between the logs, nailed an engine to the trunk, and stood at the front to balance and keep myself from falling off. It's not perfect, but it'll do. I'm gonna ride our house's roof to come and get you. The boy set sail and pushed off to sea, stood at the bow looking forward and out into everything, confident. And though he had no idea what the ocean would bring, there are some things that I just know I believe. No matter how irreconcilable they seem. Some things that I still hope I believe. No matter how irreconcilable they seem to me. Something that I always admired most about you. No matter how violent the storm, no matter how high the waves, no matter how dark the night, you never let the world get inside of your boat. You kept living when everyone else was sinking, and this whole life never got a droplet toward pulling you down to the ocean floor. Admittedly, this last bottle has room enough for the last of my heart because I drank the last of it myself. Hated it, by the way. Seems my father could have picked a vice that tasted better than rubbing alcohol, but hey, he gave me his last flask when he came downstairs to say that he wanted things to have been different, and I believed him. He said he needed to go down in the ship, but he wished that I didn't, and I believed him. Listen. The want to die is no longer a foreign thought in my mind. A lot of people want to, and I could have died without leaving a note behind. A lot of people do. He started slurring about a memory that he must have caught in the musty air, like a dust particle stuck to the glaze over his eyes when we were 6 years old. I stood inside of our home in a windowsill, watched you walk back from that boy's house down the street. I was sick. I went back to bed before I thought you saw me, and when I heard you call out, Daddy, I pretended to be asleep. I just didn't have the energy to get up and keep you from believing in the ghosts that you've seen ever since. He finally fixed his gaze, afraid, and said, honey, they have been haunting me. I hope that you don't have to see them any longer. I believe him. If I can give you anything, let it be that I have not been my farewell from the ocean, but from the moment I waved goodnight after our first victory as body-painted newlyweds in a cul-de-sac colony, looking forward to morning when our parents would let us sail through the quiet neighborhood streets and the dawn would bring us back together again. We were cowboys, we were Indians, and we were pilgrims, and none of us ever cared that cowboys didn't come here from England. We were just making our pilgrimage toward the sun, searching for freedom for everyone, but mostly us. Mostly us! Baby, I am still playing our game. I'm just sailing for the new world alone this time. I wish I could come back to tell you what I find, but life has never consulted me before making all of these big decisions, and I stand helpless and hopeless unless the beauty you see in the mystery really points to something. I wish we could explore this together. Let me tell you, to die will be an awfully big adventure, but don't get lost, boy. We have got to talk about this together someday. It's time to say goodbye. Such a definite word, an infinite word, an intimate word, but it needs to be heard so that you don't have to wonder why the bottle stopped coming. You need closure to move on. You can't sink with me. But get this after I'm gone. And I hope that you can use our treehouse to love someone else once the tide has finally set you free. But don't tell her who you built it for. Make her believe that she's the reason you put all of those hours into protecting the purity of that place. I think that eventually you'll believe it too. Look, I truly do not know whether time heals all wounds. That sounds like wishful thinking. But I do know that you cannot stop living just because someone else has. My love. Don't sink. Please, please, please promise me that you will not sink. Your queen. If you're listening, we always talked about taking that voyage together. We didn't want to die in our sleep like so many people wish for. Or at least she didn't. She thought it sounded boring, and even though dying scared me, I wanted to be brave enough to engage in the fantasy. We decided we'd go out defending our treehouse against the separatists. It was inevitable once they finally discovered us kissing traitorously beneath their cootie-infested boys-only headquarters. We'd be catgunned to death. She thought it was romantic, like Romeo and Juliet, she'd say. And I'd say, okay, but wonder, like I always do, if anyone's actually heard that story. I finished our treehouse with a few scraps of dead wood that I was able to drag back to land. It seemed fitting after our whole lives were broken homes for all the shipwrecked pieces to complete one. It is beautiful. Like she might have called it redemption for a split second. As I watched the last blue crab fall beneath the surface of the water, I thought that we are all only stones in an ocean, and maybe it didn't matter that much whether we lived or died. But she was right about taking thoughts captive. I am lonely, and I cannot reconcile loneliness with meaninglessness, because like beauty, it leaves me wanting for more. She is still a decision that floats out like debris on ripples that began at her stone's throw. You were a mountain to me. Your earthquake leaves me trembling, and I long beyond your beauty, past your breaking, and out into whoever is responsible for your new beginning. Maybe he knows the end. Maybe he knows the end. When you first set sail and pushed off to sea, I stood on the shore looking forward, tongue-tied and stubborn, holding tears behind my eyes. No matter how much I liked you, girl, there was still some boy in me. I wasn't weeping with you staring back, smiling. And I guess this is goodbye. And I've done every inch of this treehouse to keep that word away. But goodbye, despite all of my efforts, remains. This is the last of our lives. If it ever makes its way out to the new world, know that it was unending love that fueled the moon's magnetic pull to pursue you through the depth that threatened to conquer it. And it is beautiful. It cannot fail. It cannot fail. Definitely, infinitely, intimately, your king. Your king! This all used to be for nothing and no one, and now I shout transparency. Sort of. But I miss every single one of my secrets. I would rather know pain than be numb, but then again, we ask for the opiates to numb the pain for us. But I always fall asleep to dream of mending up my wounds, then wait to spend the day reliving every bruise for the sake of a sad song. Or a sweet repose. Or seeing the blood flow from the stitching like it were a cavalry of demons in retreat, promising to leave me alone. They are liars. The release has never been as satisfying as the promise to fix what's been sown. We get bottled up like the alcohol gets bottled up, and then we bottom it up in us. And I search for ways to define myself by some skeptical lack of trust, because if I can't trust in anything, I'm not to blame for my lack of movement. I can abuse all of you. And all of your pity. And I can convolute it. Like my sister used to sing when she was younger, but the world, it got in her throat. And she put that dream away while coming of age acted as a serpent and questioned her home. When I was younger, I wanted to be a cowboy. And then I wanted to be Superman, because that's the natural progression of things. And then I wanted to wear my fake green snakeskin plastic Walmart parent-bought cowboy boots with my with the red inside-out underwear. They were white on the outside, but if I wore them inside out, then they were red. And I pulled them up over my blue sweatpants, with my blue long-sleeve shirt and the red bath towel cape with the rope thing and the clothespins and the yellow iron-on felt S Superman mom costume and be cowman. Like I am a cowman. Like all of my fantasies about my wife to be were based upon things that I should have never seen. Like all of our fantasies about our wives to be based on positions that should have never been idolized by my eyes, worshipped as though they gave me life, and that's the nature of the beast. And he still squirms next to wisdom as she screams, clawing for me on the streets. And how does life begin? As a seed that turns out to scream for something. Like someone misnamed gift for to be inherently found wanting. And if there is so much joy to be found, then tell me where I went wrong. For all of the times that I have tried to satisfy my mom, I still cannot write one joy-filled song. As of 2012. As of 2016, I've got chapter 9, which is about doing gainers off of waterfalls, and also acoustic campfire guitar guys. I did, which, it's always, I really like acoustic guitar music, so it's, we're not, I don't want Luke and me to fight about anything, I don't want to, we're just, here's the thing, let's just clarify some things here really quick. Well, acoustic guitar music is great. I wish I could play the acoustic guitar, but just go with me in your mind for just a minute. Let's just go to a place where you're sitting at a campfire with a friend. Are we all there? Okay, you're sitting at a campfire with a friend. It's very nice. Stars are out. You're making s'mores. You're having a drink of water. Jackie. The water's really moving through you, the conversation is going, and then acoustic campfire guitar guy walks up with his acoustic campfire guitar, and he starts to sing your parents' 90s vineyard worship music hits that James Dobson does approve of, where you're just like, hard. I'm coming back. Gonna burn your guitar. I'm gonna throw you into. So just okay, you can snap out of it. Just don't be that guy, you know. But okay. I completely lost whatever I was saying and what I was talking about. Can't write a sad song, but I tried. I'm trying. I tried. And come October, I thought that I could do it. November threw us into a whirlwind again. And come January, I knew it. All of the things that I told anyone that would listen about the hope that I had found are lying in a hotel bathroom in a puddle of my dad's blood on the ground. And someone will love that because it's honest. And somebody will hate it because it's crude. And as for me, anytime I stand and give my testimony to a crowd, I will lie awake at night and wonder about whether or not I told the truth. Like, God, forgive me. I believe so many lies that come from the mouths of so many good liars, namely me. But I'd rather tie a millstone around my neck and throw myself into the sea than perpetuate some emotionally driven blasphemy that you don't care for the suffering servant. Give your children eyes to see the wonders that you have for them and ears to hear the direction for their wandering feet. Grieve with me. Do you still grieve with me? Look at the cross, the promise we receive. I will grieve with you with groanings too deep for words. I will sympathize with the temptation to believe the lies that you have heard. I will mourn over the loss of finite family and friends, and I will defeat death so that you will know that death is not the end. At the cross of Christ, I know that the bonds of sin are broken. That they bar the gates of hell for me, and the heaven's doors are open as wide as my sweet Savior's arms were stretched out when he died. And love has defeated death with a life for me to hope in. At the cross of Christ, I know that despair has been removed. That it drowns beneath the crushing weight of hope is found in you, as blood spills and puddles to cover every self-inflicted bruise. Murder becomes salvation. The resurrected truth at the cross of Christ, I know that anger has found its vengeance. The righteousness became sin for me, and that only at the remembrance of a man acquainted with sorrow do I stand forgiven of my resentment, as wrath and justice turn aside to crucify my defendant. At the cross of Christ, I know that shame has lost its place. That Jesus Christ endured the curse and scorned all of the disgrace, and atoned before the throne as death bled without a trace, that I might enter in and look full on his wonderful, good, patient, pursuing, unknowable, knowable, mysterious, joy-filled face. At the cross of Christ, I know. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for being here and hanging out with me tonight. Thanks for, again, to Upper Room and this place for letting me come back and hang out. We have things just like any touring human being ever had things, and there are other things next to us too. If you get any things from me, we trade it for dollars, and I will feed Brandy, who's here, and my cat Gilbert with them. So, thank you guys for being here. No obligation, obviously. I'm going to try to talk less than I've been talking for a little while. I love you all so much. Thank you for making it such a special evening. I appreciate it.